Picture a major multi-lane intersection in the heart of a massive global capital.
Right.
Normally, this space is just a deafening, chaotic artery, full of gridlocked traffic and rushing pedestrians.
Yeah, absolute chaos.
But tonight, it is past midnight, and the city is just utterly silent. I mean, everything is buried under this impossible historic layer of snow.
Just a complete blanket.
Exactly. And the streetlights are casting this surreal amber glow over these massive snowdrifts, and suddenly, cutting through that total stillness, you hear the sharp, distinct click-clack of ski bindings.
Oh, man.
Two men step out into the middle of this paralyzed, completely empty avenue, fully geared up, and they just start skiing.
It's such a wild image.
They carving turns through a major crosswalk, right? Using the snowbanks as jump ramps, completely rewriting the rules of the city.
It really is this visceral, almost mythic scene. Two figures turning a catastrophic systemic failure into a literal midnight playground.
And it brings us to a fundamental question, and it's one that is really going to anchor our entire conversation today.
Let's hear it.
So, in our modern, relentlessly optimized lives, we expect everything to be customizable. We expect our environments to basically bend to our specific will.
We do. We really do.
But when the systems you rely on suddenly break down, when the world just refuses your preferences, do you freeze and panic? Or do you find a way to surrender to the chaos and play?
That is the question, isn't it?
Welcome back to No Signal. We are diving back into the travel journals of Macy, this Japanese backpacker navigating the world in the year 2001. If you are just catching up with us, Macy has already hitchhiked the entire length of Japan, from the frozen peaks of Sapporo all the way down to Kyushu.
A massive journey already.
Yeah, and now he has crossed the sea and dropped into the raw, analog reality of Seoul, South Korea.
And that year, 2001, it's the crucial lens for this entire deep dive.
Right, because there's no tech safety net.
Exactly. Macy is operating entirely without a smartphone. I mean, there are no algorithmic maps routing him around friction, no instant translation apps to bail him out of a cultural collision,
Right.
No digital safety nets whatsoever.
Not at all.
For anyone listening right now who feels this low-level exhaustion from our hyper-scheduled, permanently tethered modern existence, Macy's journey serves as this really powerful, almost paradoxical antidote.
It really does.
We are watching someone navigate a world where giving up control is not some trendy mindfulness exercise. It is an absolute physical necessity.
I am so fascinated by how that surrender actually plays out on the ground. Because learning to let go of your ego, it doesn't usually begin with some grand cinematic blizzard.
No, it rarely does.
It actually starts with the most mundane micro interactions of your day. So let's look at Macy's first real cultural wall in Seoul.
The coffee.
Yes, the coffee. The guy just wants a normal cup of coffee. Or, maybe a simple unsweetened green tea. Because coming from Japan, unsweetened tea is just the atmospheric baseline.
Right, you don't even ask for it. It just is.
Exactly. But in 2001 South Korea, he discovers that a straightforward black coffee is practically non-existent in typical day-to-day settings.
The environmental default was just fundamentally different. The coffee that was readily available to a traveler right off the street was essentially a pre-mixed concoction.
Right.
It came heavily loaded with sugar and powdered milk, very much like those instant 3-in-1 sticks that became so ubiquitous everywhere.
And he couldn't just casually ask a waiter to, hold the sugar. The culture simply did not have a mechanism for that specific customization.
They just look at you funny?
Yeah. Even when he retreats to a convenience store, seeking out what looks like a completely standard earthy bottle of green tea, he takes a sip and is hit with this shocking wave of sweetness.
Think about the psychological friction happening there. We don't fully grasp how deeply attached we are to our small, curated comforts until they are entirely unavailable.
Oh, absolutely.
In our current era, you walk into a cafe and you rattle off a highly specific oat milk, half-pump specific temperature order.
Guilty as charged.
Right. It is an exercise in micromanaging your reality. But Macy tries to impose his preference, and the culture simply acts as a mirror, reflecting back the reality that his way is not the center of the universe.
I have to admit that sounds mildly infuriating.
It does.
Like, if I'm traveling and I cannot get my morning coffee the exact way I need it to function, I am probably going to be in a terrible mood. It feels like a trivial thing to get upset about, but it really knocks you off balance.
Well, knocks you off balance because it is a tiny ego death.
A tiny ego death. Wow.
Yeah, it's the realization that your personal operating system is just incompatible with the broader environment.
Hmm.
Marcy realizes he cannot hack the menu. He simply has to surrender.
Right. He ends up defaulting to drinking water or Coca-Cola. Right.
Exactly, because with a Coke, the sweetness is a known, standardized contract. You know what you're getting.
That makes total sense. But once he accepts that he cannot control the beverage, he starts noticing how the infrastructure actually dictates a completely different rhythm of life,
Yes.
which leads to one of the most surreal street scenes he documents. He is walking around Seoul and spots these paper cup coffee vending machines dispensing that hot, incredibly sweet coffee we were just talking about.
Yeah.
But bolted directly to the side of the vending machine is a literal public telephone.
It's brilliant design.
And sitting right there on the sidewalk, placed specifically for the user, is a chair.
Contrast that with how we interact with public space today.
It's night and day.
A vending machine in a modern Western city is a purely transactional pit stop. You tap your phone, grab an energy drink, and keep moving, deliberately avoiding eye contact while staring at a screen.
Yeah, you are physically present, but mentally you are just elsewhere.
Exactly. But this Korean street setup is the exact opposite. A hot, sugary drink, a phone, and a chair. It is an explicit invitation from the city planners to stop moving.
The infrastructure is essentially saying, sit down, drink your sweet coffee, and have a long conversation.
And there's a very specific economic logic driving that behavior. In South Korea at that time, local calls from public phones were incredibly cheap, whereas mobile phone minutes were an expensive luxury.
Oh, right. So you didn't want to use your cell phone if you had one.
Right, so the environment encouraged lingering. You aren't rushing back to an inbox. You are engaging in voluntary static surrender.
Voluntary static surrender. I love that.
You yield to the pace dictated by the machine, the warmth of the cup, and the voice on the other end of the analog line.
You are choosing to pause. But, the journey doesn't stay quiet for long, because the moment Marcy leaves the sidewalk and goes underground into the subway system, that peaceful surrender is completely shattered.
Oh, completely.
We move from a quiet street corner into a highly regulated, inescapable moving tube, and suddenly he witnesses how raw human survival thrives in the gaps of a rigid system.
Subways are perhaps the ultimate symbol of municipal control.
Yeah, they have to be.
They run on strict timetables, moving massive volumes of human capital from point A to point B. It is a sealed environment where order is absolutely paramount.
Unless, of course, you happen to be in the same train car as the underground merchants Marcy encounters.
Which is just a wild phenomenon.
He is sitting there, and without warning, a salesman launches a full-scale retail operation inside the moving train. And the mechanics of this are mind-blowing. They have a razor-thin operational window of exactly 3 minutes between stations.
And the physical environment is incredibly hostile to a sales pitch.
Yeah, the noise alone.
You have the deafening industrial clatter of the tracks, the screeching of metal wheels, the swaying of the carriage.
Right.
And over all of that noise, the merchant has to project a rapid-fire pitch, physically distribute product samples into the hands of seated captive passengers, collect the unwanted items, close the actual sales, make change in cash, and vanish through the doors the second they open at the next platform.
Only to sprint to the adjacent car and execute the exact same performance.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
What Marcy is describing is essentially a real-life, unskippable YouTube ad. But instead of being pushed to your retinas by some Silicon Valley algorithm, it is powered by pure, breathless, physical human grit.
That analogy perfectly highlights the intrusiveness of it. Let's consider how a modern audience, or even Marcy coming from Japan, processes that intrusion.
Okay, yeah.
In contemporary urban life, a commute is considered a sanctuary of silence. We put on noise-canceling headphones to build a fortress against the outside world.
We really do.
If someone started shouting a sales pitch on a morning train in London or Tokyo today, it would be viewed as a hostile act, a complete breakdown of civic order.
Wait, let me stop you there because I would absolutely be one of those annoyed commuters.
I'd be too.
If I am trying to mentally prepare for my day or, decompress after work, someone yelling over the train noise to sell me a random household gadget is going to spike my blood pressure.
Oh, completely understandable.
So isn't Marcy just romanticizing a public nuisance here? I mean, is there really a deeper philosophical lesson in someone's desperate hustle to make a buck?
It is a totally fair pushback. And it is exactly why Marcy's Japanese perspective is so vital here.
How so?
Well, Japan's public spaces are famously orderly to a fault. The friction is sanded down to zero.
Right. Everyone is quiet, everyone follows the rules.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But rather than reacting with the typical annoyance of a disrupted commuter, Marcy observes this merchant with profound respect. He identifies it as a hungry spirit.
A hungry spirit, that's a great phrase.
He recognizes that true, unvarnished vitality often exists outside the boundaries of polite, regulated society. We spend immense amounts of money and energy insulating ourselves from friction.
We do. We pay a premium to not be bothered.
Right. But Marcy strips away that judgment. He doesn't see a nuisance. He sees the raw human survival instinct playing out in real time. It is life refusing to be neatly categorized, finding a way to draw breath in the cracks of a massive urban machine. It requires a specific kind of surrender to witness that chaos and feel awe instead of anger.
That makes a lot of sense. Instead of fighting the reality of the loud train, he just accepts it as a display of pure energy.
Exactly.
So we've explored giving up control to small cultural defaults, like the sweetness of your tea. We've talked about surrendering your quiet space to the chaotic energy of another human being. But the narrative takes an absolutely massive leap when nature itself decides to intervene.
Oh, this is the best part.
What happens when an entire metropolis of millions of people is forced to a grinding, inescapable halt?
We arrive at the climax of his time in Seoul, where the illusion of modern control isn't just challenged, it is completely obliterated.
The date is February 15th, 2001. A historic monumental blizzard slams into Seoul. It is the heaviest snowfall the city has experienced in 32 years.
It's massive.
We are talking about 34 centimeters of snow dumping onto a landscape that possesses zero infrastructure to handle it.
To understand the sheer scale of the disruption, you really have to look at the municipal reality. If 34 centimeters falls in Sapporo, where Marcy is from, it's just a Tuesday.
Right. Business as usual.
The city has massive fleets of plows, heated sidewalks, and deeply ingrained cultural routines to process the weather. Seoul, in 2001, had none of that.
None of it.
Traffic simply ceased to exist. Commerce vanished. The rigid, tightly wound calendar of a massive economic hub was erased in a matter of hours.
And Marcy notes these incredible details about how the locals were desperately trying to cope. In Japan, almost every household has this wide plastic snow scoop, they call it a mama-san dump, designed for rapid snow clearing.
Right, very common tool there.
But that tool was completely unheard of in Seoul. People were pouring out onto the streets, grabbing wooden signboards, trying to literally scrape the asphalt clean. It was pure, unadulterated panic as the system failed entirely.
And this systemic collapse sets the stage for one of the most profound philosophical concepts in Eastern thought, the concept of ku, which translates roughly to emptiness.
I want to dig deeply into this because when a Western listener hears the word emptiness, it usually carries a negative connotation.
It does.
It implies sadness, a void, a lack of meaning. It sounds almost nihilistic.
That is the crucial distinction. In the Western framework, emptiness is a vacuum waiting to suck the joy out of a room. But in the Eastern philosophical tradition, ku is the absolute opposite of a dead void.
Okay, so what is it?
It is a state of pure, unbridled potential. Think about a teacup. The usefulness of the teacup isn't the ceramic walls. The usefulness is the empty space inside that allows it to hold tea.
Oh, I see.
When the blizzard hit, it emptied the city of its defined purpose. The multi-lane roads were no longer conduits for vehicles. The sidewalks were no longer paths for rushing commuters. All the labels were stripped away.
The city was essentially reset to factory defaults. And while everyone else is panicking because their routines are broken, because they don't know who they are if they aren't commuting to work, Marcy and his friend look out at this empty city and see that pure potential.
Most people look at a disrupted system and see a crisis, because their ego is entirely tied to the rules of that system.
Right.
But Marcy's friend, Masayoshi, he provides the spark for what happens next. Masayoshi isn't just a casual traveler. He is a sponsored skier who moved to Korea, and he happens to have 2 sets of high-end ski gear just sitting in his Seoul apartment.
The serendipity of that is unbelievable. They look out the window at this paralyzed, silent, snow-choked urban landscape, and instead of hunkering down to wait for the authorities to restore order, they suit up.
They do.
They grab their skis, click into their bindings, and walk straight out into the middle of the city.
It is midnight. The usual deafening roar of Seoul traffic has been replaced by the heavy, muffled silence that only comes with deep snow.
And they use the massive, chaotic snowdrifts that panicked locals had pushed to the sides of the road as jump ramps.
That's incredible.
They are literally inventing urban street skiing years before it became a viral extreme sport. They are carving down avenues, catching air off snowbanks right under the streetlights.
Notice the shift in power there. They took the exact obstacle that had paralyzed millions of people, the snow itself, and transformed it into a vehicle for absolute freedom.
Yeah.
They embodied coup. The road was no longer a road, it was a mountain.
I keep trying to put myself in the shoes of the few locals who might have been peering out their windows or standing on a corner. You are stressed, you are worried about how you're going to get to work tomorrow, and suddenly two guys go flying past you on skis across a massive crosswalk.
It would just break your brain.
Totally.
To the locals, snow is a disaster. Skiing is an activity designated for a specific mountain resort hundreds of miles away. But Marcy and Masayoshi had completely abandoned the conventional rules of the environment.
They didn't fight the blizzard, they aligned themselves with the wildness of the new reality.
Exactly.
It fundamentally changes how you view moments of disruption. When your flight is canceled, when the power goes out, when the app stops working, you can sit there and rage against the broken system, or you can look at the sudden void in your schedule and ask, okay, how do we play?
That's the mindset shift right there.
And the wildest part of all of this is just the warm-up. Marcy has hitched across Japan. He has skied through the apocalyptic streets of Seoul, and he still has an entire massive Trans-Asian crossing ahead of him.
The geographical scale of what he is attempting is staggering.
It really is.
The physical journey is impressive, sure, but the internal journey is what is truly captivating. He is building a mental toolkit for navigating the unknown, learning how to find vitality in places where the rest of us only see friction.
I am incredibly excited to see what happens when he pushes further into the continent in our next deep dive into his journals. But for now, it brings us right back to that core question we asked at the very beginning.
Let's bring it back.
When the systems break down, do you freeze or do you play? We spend so much of our limited energy trying to maintain a perfect, customized reality. We get stressed when our inbox overflows, we get agitated when our commute is loud, we panic when the weather destroys our color-coded calendar.
But true freedom, the kind of thrilling, unforgettable finality that Marcy experienced in the middle of that intersection, it only reveals itself when you relinquish the illusion of control. Which leaves us with a challenge for you to consider today.
Let's hear it.
Think about the rigid structures that define your day right now. The smartphone notifications dictating your attention, the algorithmic feeds telling you what to care about, the endless series of scheduled meetings.
All of it.
If a metaphorical blizzard wiped all of that away tomorrow morning, leaving you with an empty street and absolutely no obligations, what skis would you put on? What part of yourself is just waiting for the system to break so it can finally come out to play?